I'm Jen Cumberworth, and I handle the community engagement and education work at the Hult Center. And today we are talking to Lee Alberts, our food and beverage manager. So we're going to ask some questions of Lee. We're going to go through some different things, and then if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll get to those following all the questions that we're going to go through. So let's just kick it off. I have too many screens open and I'm trying to get to my questions. So Lee, you're the food and beverage manager at the Hult Center.
Yes.
Can you give us an idea of like what that means? What are your daily tasks and what sorts of projects do you get to work on?
Okay, well, since it's been quite a while since we've actually done our normal daily tasks, I did go through and kind of revisit what I used to do pre-COVID. And but basically, the daily tasks are overseeing the food and beverage operation at the Hult Center, which includes the front of house concession stands, and then also the back of house, which is the catering for the tour groups that come through. And then we also have a kitchen there and the storeroom where all the supplies come through. I do all the ordering of the products to sell at the concession stands. I choose all the products that are made available to patrons coming in. I monitor the inventory to make sure there's enough product on the hand and that everything is fresh. We don't want to be serving anything stale or bad wine or anything like that.
Totally.
We do I do the schedules of staff to work the stands. We keep an eye on revenue numbers from previous years and shows to kind of figure out what our business levels are going to be from show to show. A rock show, for example, is going to do a lot more sales than, let's say, like a symphony. A symphony has a generally older audience, where the rock show will have the younger audience that's going to drink a lot of beer, and the lines will be a little bit longer. So we look at our staffing levels for things like that. I track all the revenues and consumption of product and bounce it off the revenue numbers that came in to verify that everything is accounted for and that nobody's stealing anything or doing anything like that, and everything's getting rung in. I also look at tour riders to determine what performers need backstage for food and beverage. A tour rider is a document that basically includes a set of rules that a performer sets as criteria for a performance. That includes all the requests or demands, either for the artist's comfort or their technical needs to do the performance. So my end of it is what they need to eat, basically, and what they want in their rooms.
Wow, that's like a ton of moving parts. I feel like I personally always forget that, like, not forget, but you see the concession side of things in the bar with shows, but you don't always think about the back end where you're also working with the artists and what their needs are. And
yeah. The artist can be a little bit tricky. There's a famous comedian, Jerry Seinfeld. I think we've all heard of him.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he always wants a jar of pickles, some sliced turkey breast, Vasa water is like an expensive water that looks like a shampoo bottle.
Is it the glass like cylinder?
Yeah, the glass thing. And
I've never had it, but
yeah, that's good. He always leaves it there when he leaves. But he also wants a toothbrush and a hairbrush and Crest toothpaste. So we always have to make sure that those are on hand. And the funny thing is he literally gets dropped off at the stage entrance, goes on stage, never touches any of the food, and then it's all left there. And
then you get to enjoy it afterwards?
You know, I tell you, the turkey breast that he had a few years ago was the best turkey breast I probably ever had.
That's awesome. So when it comes to with the performers, you get a rider, so you know kind of detailed of what they want and what to get for them. But when it comes to the concessions for the patrons, how do you choose what kinds of beers and wines and snacks and things that you have?
Well, that's become the favorite part of my job, probably.
So we're jumping to the next question. What's the best part of your job?
So, I keep track of, on my revenue reports, I'm able to see how things are selling. You can tell whether things are sitting or if they're moving or not. And so in an ideal world, all your beers are going to kind of sell equally, and your kegs are going to all be moving at the proper rate. Things that aren't selling are probably what people don't want and people don't like. So we've kind of landed on a pretty good lineup of stuff. When I first started here, I was looking for new products. So I was going to Sweet Life and trying out different brownies, which was quite a bit of fun. But the concessions world is a lot of not so healthy food. So like we cook cookies, we make homemade cookies, and they're very tempting when they're warm and they're sitting there, and you're gonna probably dig into them here and there.
I mean, I think most staff at the Hult Center have enjoyed quite a few of those cookies.
Yeah, well, when they're left over after the show, they're kind of a big hit. So the food and beverage department is a pretty popular department in the hotel, or sorry, in the Hult Center. When I was doing my notes, my background is hotels, so.
Yeah. So you get to kind of sample everything, which is awesome. And then if you have something like a product that doesn't really sell, like what do you ever donate, or how does that whole process work? The excess inventory?
Eventually everything sells, except when COVID hit. We were left literally with full kegs and many boxes of candy, and things are still sitting on the shelves that I believe there's candy that's expiring this month that we'll try to find a good use for it. A lot went to somebody does a big Halloween display in town here, so 200 boxes of candy went to there, and they handed them out to little kids. So at least that. But within the center itself, we usually move through everything. We'll kind of get creative. If a keg is sitting for a little bit, we'll move that to a stand where it gets a little more action and move it. And then we'll put something else in its spot. But we've kind of landed in a pretty good spot over the last 2 years where we haven't really had to deal with that. The only time we run into it is when we go into our slow season, and which is the summer, oddly enough. We'll kind of slow down our ordering and be very careful. We might limit choices just a little bit. We have more choices than most venues do for beer and wine. So we'll pare that down just a bit to try to make sure that when the slow season hits, we're not sitting on a lot of product, and that's just money left on the table.
Awesome. That is really interesting. I mean, like you said, before COVID, you work it out, but so if that's the best part, like you get to sample all these things and try all these, different products and stuff, like what would you say is the most challenging? It seems like there's a ton of moving parts to your job and the work that
the most challenging parts are probably when glitches come up on you. We operate POS systems, point of sale systems. You see them at every restaurant, or McDonald's. You walk into McDonald's, they ring them up. That's a point of sale system. Those things inevitably will conk out on you, always right in the middle of your busiest night of the year, it seems like. So we're always trying to move lines as quickly as possible. Shows, our doors open an hour before the showtime, and it's really that last half hour that everybody's coming in, trying to get something to drink and eat, and then get to their seats. So you have, on a sold out show, you have 2,500 people walking into the facility, and you're trying to move them as quickly as possible. And then all of a sudden, we've had nights where the entire system will go down all at once. And so then you're kind of trying to flip to a cash system and keep people moving, but then you need to communicate that you're not taking credit cards. So, but then also mechanical issues of like refrigeration, conking out, something as simple as a keg blowing. You run out of beer and there's a line, 10 people deep, and all of a sudden you need to change a keg. And
so you have to kind of be like skilled at a lot of different things. I mean, you're working with equipment like the POS systems, but then you're also like cooking and doing, I mean, I don't know if you're actually the one in the kitchen doing that stuff or like you're kind of.
I'm in the kitchen at my house doing all that stuff. I've got a wonderful person, Courtney, that works with me that handles a lot of the cooking. There's 2 of us mainly that work full time in the food and beverage operation. And then our staff that comes and work the shows is all kind of on-call temp labor kind of stuff. And so she's the main like food kind of person, but we'll kind of work together to figure out menus and things like that. But no, I'm definitely not the cook for the place there. Yeah, you definitely need to go. You need to learn a lot about Microsoft, from Microsoft Windows to point of sale systems to mechanical systems as well.
Yeah. A lot of different moving parts. And so like, I was just also thinking about when you get going back to your favorite thing that you like to do and like getting to test out stuff. I know that you've also like paired drinks or like snacks and stuff with shows. Do you get to do that often, or is that like a fun side of things?
I like to do it more often. I've been kind of dabbling in a little bit of that since COVID has started, where there's a few chocolate places in town. The one that we carry right now is Euphoria Chocolates, and they have a lot of truffles that pair up well with wines. And then, but also some of my good friends own Ale Song Brewery here in town, and they use a chocolate called Davy's Chocolates. And they'll, every release, it seems like they're putting a beer with a different type of chocolate that
cool.
with that. So that's just kind of something that's on my radar. But we've also gotten some cheeses from Rogue Creamery down in Central Point, Oregon, which won the award for the world's best cheese last year.
Yeah.
And we've handed those out at shows to people. Every time they would order a glass of a red wine, we would give them a complimentary little like bite of cheese to pair with it, just to kind of enhance the experience that you don't really get at other venues normally.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yep.
So, and I was also curious, like when you with going back to the challenging side of things is moving through all these people. And if you have 2 shows, so like we have 2,500 people in one hall or like close to 500 in the other.
Yep.
How many people do you usually have on staff, like working the concessions to service all of those people?
Well, the most that we've ever had on at one time, I believe, is 20, not including myself and Courtney that works with me. So that's just your people working the stand. So you're trying to basically have every person that's on a register has somebody getting the product for them. So they're kind of working in a tandem, trying to move that line along as quickly as possible. But some of those busier shows will set up like an extra stand up on the balconies going up the Silva Hall.
Oh, okay.
To help move the lines a little bit faster, and we'll split. We have one stand where we have hard liquor and beer and wine. Sometimes we'll take the hard liquor and move that just onto its own bar to move that along a little bit quicker as well. So that's where you get up into the 20 people range.
Right.
But yeah, with those double shows can be a real challenge, because sometimes they'll both start at the same time, and all of a sudden you'll have 3,000 people. And then your biggest nightmare is if they both go on intermission at the same time, and then you have 3,000 people coming out, and then they all need to use the bathroom at the same time, and they all want to drink at the same time. So
you're just like running around.
I always say get your drink and then go to the bathroom. But
So then when you're working a show like that, and I know you mentioned you're doing the catering for the artists. Mm-hmm. Often you work with catering companies, correct? Yep. For the artists?
Yep. So we have a list of approved caterers through the Hult Center that go through a process with the city of Eugene. The Hult Center is run by the city of Eugene, and we will verify food handlers, safety things, quality of food type stuff. And so I think we had a list of about maybe 6 approved caterers, and right now with COVID going on, we're down to 2 or 3 or something. But
Yeah.
once the vaccines start hitting and everybody gets up and running again, we'll probably have 5 again. But they're pretty good. They're pretty familiar with the building, and once they get in the building, they always provide a server, and their staff is actually serving the patrons. We're just kind of checking in on them. We'll open up the chafing dishes and look at the food just to make sure that the quality's there, and that we know that what we're recommending is of quality for the performers.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That was actually going to be my question. Like, once they're there, like, what's your involvement? So that makes a lot of sense, just to kind of oversee it. But
yeah. Once they're there and eating, it's usually about the time that the doors are opening. So once the doors are opening, we're in full go mode, and we are on that floor, and we have like that sense of urgency to move those lines. And we're like, I'm usually out on the floor, kind of monitoring people, helping guide people. Sometimes people walk into the Hult Center and it can be very confusing as to what is where, because there's so many people and it's kind of dark in the corners. And so you can kind of tell when people are walking in, they have that look that they don't really know where they're going. And sometimes one line will get a little bit long, but some of those people are probably can get what they're looking for in the next line over. So it will direct them around the building and try to help the flow a little bit. But because at the end of the day, there's more money for the bottom line, and it improves the patron experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're not like confused or waiting in line.
Yeah, right. And they're very appreciative. If you save them a few minutes, they're like, all of a sudden you're the greatest guy in the world,
Right. And you're giving them a beverage. I mean,
right, exactly.
So with a typical show, the doors open like an hour before, and you're there and you're serving patrons at intermission. And then when does your evening end?
Well, our license allows us to sell product until about a half hour before the show ends. But most shows, like let's say The Lion King, for example, once that second act is underway, people aren't leaving. They're sitting in their seat, they're watching the show. Where a rock show, people will be more in and out. So it kind of depends on what type of show it is. A symphony, people aren't going to get up and leave either. So we will just close after intermission is over. A rock show will usually put up a sign that will let people know. We usually get the run times of the show. We'll know which time the show is going to end. And we'll put that out there that we are closing at 10:30. And that way, if I'm sitting up in the balcony and I know that they're closing at 10:30, well, at 10:20, I'm going to go down and get that last drink. So.
Awesome. So that makes sense. So with the job, with the kind of work that you do, what would be the average salary for a position like yours? And maybe you could talk about like entry level positions. I don't know if you're with that kind of.
So my job is a little bit different compared to a lot of, like my job is kind of a mix between food and beverage and performing arts. So you kind of can cover all ends of the spectrum. Food and beverage operations are at like country clubs and hotels and resorts and restaurants. So a department head like myself can range from, on the low end in a small food and beverage operation, probably 45 to 50,000, where going up to a larger operation like a big resort in Las Vegas is probably 250,000 a year. So, but I think in general, the range for most operations is going to be about 60 to 120,000 mainly, something like that. So it's a pretty big range, but it depends on what your revenue and how much volume of business you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful to know. And thinking about which avenue, like you said, there's so many different areas that you can do this work, which kind of leads me into my next question, which I know you mentioned before you kind of were in the hotel industry. So if you could you could kind of give us an overview of your career path and how you kind of got to where you are now at the Hult Center.
Sure. So I gotta look back on my life, because once you get to be my age, it's hard to keep track.
Yeah.
No, so I started in the hotel business pretty much right out of high school. I was working at Sears back in the 1991, and it was the year that the Bulls were first in the NBA Finals, and
Oh yeah,
I wanted one or two of the nights off of work. So I asked my boss, I'm like, "Can I get one or two of these nights off of work?" And she didn't give me any of them off. So I was like, "All right, you know what? I quit." And so I quit.
Did you really quit because of the Bulls?
Yeah. And so I owe all my life and where I am now to Michael Jordan and the Bulls.
Don't we all?
Yeah, don't we all? So I needed a job, so I went to a resort in Chicago called the Pheasant Run Resort. It was right outside Chicago, in the town that I was from. And I got a job working at the front desk, and it was terrifying. I was like learning a front desk computer system that was like a foreign language to me. And this was 1991, so computers were not what they are now. They weren't as user friendly.
Was it the size of the room?
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's like a phone to plug into it, So very quickly, I was not. So I had just graduated from high school and was not going to college. I was not a very good student, and college just wasn't going to be my deal. But I started to figure out very quickly that you could move up in the hospitality industry without a college degree by being just good. And I always knew kind of when I was growing up that college wasn't going to be for me, but I knew I was able to work. And so I started moving up in the hotel business through the years. I became a front desk supervisor, and then a reservations manager, and then a director of services, which oversees housekeeping, and then a manager on duty at the Hilton Inn Towers in downtown Chicago. And then I got sick of it all and I quit. And so I left the industry for 7 or 8 years. And by a fluke chance, I was working for a school district outside of Chicago, running a special education work program. And they wanted me to do it at the Schaumburg Marriott Hotel, a Marriott hotel. Well, once I got to the hotel, I was like, oh, I kind of missed this. And they knew I had a background of hotels there. So the banquet manager was a good friend of mine, and he kept bugging me, oh, come work with me. And so eventually I went and worked with him, and then decided that, I could probably make a lot more money in this than I can in the school district. So I left the school district, went back into the hotel in food and beverage full time, became a banquet manager, and then a director of restaurants. And then we decided to move from Chicago when my wife graduated from medical school. And so we were like, this is our one chance to leave. So she got a job out here at Slocum Orthopedics, and I got here and I couldn't find, and we thought, oh, Eugene will have like lots of big food and beverage operations. And I was at a hotel where I oversaw like 3 restaurants, a bowling alley, a golf course. And
oh, wow.
And then I got here and I was like, whoa, there's nothing like that here. And so I left for a few months and helped out the company I was working for that I had just left, and went to San Diego and Jackson, Wyoming, and helped out at some resorts there. And then the Hult Center job came open, and fortunately I was able to land that. And 5 years later, still here. And I don't know that I'm ever going to leave this job. This is pretty good.
That's awesome. That's really cool. It's really helpful to hear what the work is like at these different places, like working at resorts and whatnot. And
yep. Food and beverage operations are pretty fun to work in most anywhere. It's all there. Everybody is kind of paid to be friendly. You're like, well, I guess not your cooks and all the people that are in the back. That's why we keep them in the back. But you tend to make a lot of friends, meet a lot of people. But it's definitely a fun atmosphere. And
it seems like you kind of have to when you're working with like local businesses and stuff. Like,
mm-hmm.
connections probably naturally, build and.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely out here. And once you become like a department head, you're kind of building rapport with the local businesses, like the wineries and the breweries here in town. I have most of my best friends that I've met here are with the breweries and the wineries here in town. So yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome. Well, so you kind of touched on my other question, which was going to be like, does one need a college degree to enter this career? And it sounds like you didn't take that.
Well, I hope not. So otherwise I'll have to go back to college. But no, you don't need to, but I think once you can get yourself pretty far, like your shift supervisors, even your restaurant managers, and even a job like mine you could do without the college degree. But once you kind of start getting into those like department head where you're wanting to go from say a restaurant employee to a food and beverage director or something like that, you can do it with just experience, but it does help a little bit, I think, to have that degree. I don't know, a lot of people want to do that hospitality degree, but I don't know. I sometimes think a business degree is maybe a better option, but I don't know. We had a long conversation about this the other day this came up the other day actually, and somebody else said maybe a psychology degree, because you're also dealing with a lot of different types of personalities and a lot of different people. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I never thought a psychology degree was useful for anything, but that might be it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like, when you're talking about being able to read a room of people and like just being able to assess and know what their needs are. I mean, that's
right. Yeah.
Sounds like psychology to me.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know, a lot of things just kind of come with age too, like when you're young, you have all the energy in the world and you're physically able to like move and really show a lot of hustle and things like that. But learning how to deal with people and interpersonal kind of things tend to come a little bit over time with maturity.
Yeah.
But,
so what would you recommend if someone's interested in taking this career path? Do you recommend them starting at like doing a concessions job, or what's your advice?
These are good jobs for to do, especially while you're in school and things like that. Yeah, you could do something like that, or even just serving at a restaurant or working a coffee counter somewhere. Like those are fast paced. Anything that's fast paced, I would recommend. And that you're dealing with a lot of different people. Front desk at a hotel is a great thing to get into.
So the concession staff, could they be high school students? Like I know if we have high school students viewing, like I don't know if that's what.
Well, you're supposed to be 21. We're working on trying to change that to 18.
I wasn't sure about serving alcohol.
Yeah, there's a lot of places you can serve drinks that are not hard alcohol if you're under 21. You have to be 21 when it's hard alcohol and mixing drinks and that sort of thing. But you can serve beer and wait tables with being under 21.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. So
yeah.
So do you have any other like advice besides encouraging students to kind of get into a fast-paced environment, like you said, like a restaurant or anything, any other pieces of advice that you?
Well, I would always recommend that wherever you're at, given the opportunity, try to learn every little facet of the building that you're working in. So pick the brain of the other, even if it's not your department. I still do that to this day. I'll ask the technical directors or the booking manager, whoever it is. I'll ask Jen, whoever. If I'm curious about something, you can never have too much knowledge, and take that opportunity to learn as much about the building that you're working in and what is where, how everything works. And that way you just become a sponge of knowledge. And that way, when you're trying to move up into different careers, you can get a little bit of a crutch to lean on, and that you could say, I know this, 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 and this. And just helps you with interviewing skills as well.
That's really helpful. I mean, like when you're working in a team of people, I think it's also just a nice respectful thing too, that you like understand the work that they're doing. And
yeah, I mean, a lot of people are doing a lot more involved things. I mean, the stage, for example, at the Hult Center, to me, is coming in with a food and beverage background that knows nothing about how stages work. And like, I love talking to the stage hands and kind of picking their brains about what goes on and why they do certain things. Like during COVID, with things shut down, it's always interesting to me to walk in and see like lights shining in there, and Dan, the stage hand, will be messing around with like some new equipment, and it's really cool to have a little bit more knowledge about what's going on. So also when people come in and you're talking to them in the lobby, you can talk about different things going on in the building as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like you're in hospitality, so being able to like explain that stuff to people, even if it's on a base level, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you were talking earlier about writers and Seinfeld and stuff, like what's the weirdest food request? And I don't know if you're allowed to say the person's name or not.
I don't know. Okay, so there was a guy. Well, there's been a few that have come in that have had previous issues with alcohol in the past. That will say very clear, like, no alcohol anywhere near the room. So that's.
And we're not going to say any names. So
no. But so that's actually a big thing that you definitely want to pay attention to and be mindful of. And even if we're just going to get ice back there, we'll want to like kind of move through quick, because we don't want to put it in somebody's brain that this is for something that they don't do. But there's been people that have like certain kinds of teas. I remember a performer wanted once, and he's one actually a performer that I have seen in concert many times. And when I got this thing, I was like, what the heck, where are we gonna find this stuff at? And that's where the beauty of a caterer is, like, well, here you go, like, good luck with that. But yeah, just certain teas are very odd to me, and where you go about finding those, and I want them prepped in certain ways. There was, it's been a little bit since we've had a show, so
I know, not to put you on the spot, but I'm always curious about that.
There's like a famous story that goes back. I want to say it was maybe Van Halen or something like that, from way back in the day. Like, it's always referred to as the green M&Ms or something like that. There was some show, and the performers, it was like a test to the facility to see if they actually follow through on things, but they wanted a bowl of M&Ms, but there couldn't be any green ones in it or something.
I feel like that's like the lore, right, of a writer.
What's that?
I said, I feel like that's like the lore, like of a writer, like that stuff, like the no.
Sometimes they're just testing you, and sometimes they're just really difficult, and it can be crazy. Like, the amount of stuff they want is not within the budget that was agreed upon. And so then we'll go back to the booking manager, and she's wonderful. She'll kind of go back to the show and say, okay, this is no, you're not getting that. And we're like, thank God.
Sorry if you can hear my baby in the other room. Anyway, so those are the questions that I had, and I'd like to open it up if there are any questions. I don't know if we have any questions from those viewing, but otherwise, Lee, do you have any other like great stories or advice, any other pieces of information that you'd like?
I mean, one of the cool things, I guess you had asked earlier about some of the special projects. I forgot to mention that. Some of the special projects that I get to do at the Hult Center is a few years ago, we had our 35th anniversary. So I got to work with one of the breweries in town on a beer that we got to serve. We unveiled it at the Hult Center. It was only served at the Hult Center and at the brewery itself. And I got to help make the beer, which was really cool. And
you got to help make it?
Yeah, I got to help make it. I went to, I could probably say the name because we sell their product, Cold Fire Brewery here in town, and help the owners, Dan and Steven, pick out the hops and then help actually make the beer and go through the whole process of it. And it's actually helped get my knowledge of the beer up by quite a bit. But I'm already working with Ale Song Brewery, some friends of mine that own that place. We're working on barrel aged beer for the 40th anniversary, which is coming up in 2022. So that's already in process. And then we're also working on a wine for that year as well. So those are probably the coolest of the little projects that you get to do, but it also helps get your knowledge up about other businesses in town, and it can kind of teach you a lot about what goes into actually making these things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what a fun, cool project.
Yeah, you can come help make the next one at Cold Fire.
Wait, I can come help make the next one?
Yeah, you can help it. Yeah, actually the 2 hardest days I had working, I say, were the 2 days I had to go brew this beer, because you're lifting I forget how, I think they're 35-pound bags of malt and grain up over your head into this auger that crushes all the grains and puts it in this kettle, and then the water boils it, and it's an interesting process, but there's a lot of bags of stuff that go into that, and it's pretty physical labor.
Got to start lifting some weights.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's really cool. I didn't realize that you get to actually physically go and help make that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to sample the one for the 40th.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure it'll be good.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. I'm just giving another second. But Lee, this was awesome. It was super helpful to hear about everything. Sorry, my baby's being really loud in the back.
And I was worried about my dog barking.
But it was really helpful to hear about everything that you do. It's so much, there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this. It actually kind of helped me out a little bit, because a few years ago, I took a few months off of work. I had to have a surgery. And so I was off work for a few months, and it was when we were working on moving out here, and I had to do a job interview over the phone, and I hadn't worked in 3 months, and I was horrible. I couldn't even remember what I did. And so being able to do this, I was kind of able to get the wheels going again. And
yeah, since we've been closed with COVID.
Yeah, that's been good to be like, oh yeah, that's what we do.
To remember all the stuff we used to do.
All the things. But we're looking forward to getting back at it in 2021 and serving the public, and hopefully everybody will come back in masses, and we'll see everybody down the road.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Lee. This was really great. And if anyone has any questions further, feel free to reach out to me and I can relay them to Lee. So
thank you.
Okay, great. Well, take care.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.